Okay, I want you to do an experiment. We're going to look up the name Enoch in your Bible app, all right? Now, I have it listed here in the Amplified version because that's the one I prefer. It's really wordy, but it gives you a little more depth in the meaning of what they're trying to say. All right. Now, when I typed in Enoch, I have 12 results here. So the first result is in Genesis chapter 5, verse 24, and it says, "And in reverent fear and obedience, Enoch walked with God, and he was not found among men, because God took him away to be home with him." Okay, so that's the Amplified version. So that's a great place to start. So who was Enoch, and how did he have this kind of favor with God? All right, we're going to find out. We have Genesis chapter 4, verse 17 and 18, but this is a different Enoch, okay? This Enoch was the son of Cain, who killed Abel. When Cain left the area where Adam and Eve were living after they had left the garden. So Genesis chapter 4 and verse 17 says, "Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and gave birth to Enoch. And Cain built a city and named it Enoch after the name of his son." And then verse 18 says, "Now to Enoch was born Irad, and Irad became the father," and so on and so forth. So this is the lineage of Enoch, who was born unto Cain, who killed Abel and was sent away from the presence of his family, Adam and Eve, and their offspring. Now Genesis chapter 5 verse 18 says, "When Jared was 162 years, he became the father of Enoch." So this is the introduction of a different Enoch. So this is the lineage. When you read chapter 5, and I'm going to go there, let's read the full chapter. Descendants of Adam. This is the book, the written record, the history of the generations of the descendants of Adam. When God created man, he made him in the likeness of God, not physical, but a spiritual personality and moral likeness. He created them male and female and blessed them and named them mankind at the time they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he became the father of a son in his own likeness according to his image, and named him Seth. After he became the father of Seth, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. So Adam lived 930 years in all, and he died. When Seth was 105 years old, he became the father of Enoch. Seth lived 807 years after the birth of Enoch, and he had other sons and daughters. So Seth lived 920 years, and he died. When Enoch was 90 years old, he became the father of Kenan. Enoch lived 815 years after the birth of Kenan and had other sons and daughters. So Enoch lived 905 years, and he died. When Kenan was 70 years old, he became the father of Mahalalel. Kenan lived 840 years after the birth of Mahalalel and had other sons and daughters. So Kenan lived 910 years, and he died. When Mahalalel was 65 years old, he became the father of Jared. Mahalalel lived 830 years after the birth of Jared and had other sons and daughters. So Mahalalel lived 895 years, and he died. When Jared was 162 years old, he became the father of Enoch. Jared lived 800 years after the birth of Enoch and had other sons and daughters. So Jared lived 962 years, and he died. When Enoch was 65 years old, he became the father of Methuselah. Enoch lived in habitual fellowship with God 300 years after the birth of Methuselah and had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years. 365 years. That's interesting. And in reverent fear and obedience, Enoch walked with God, and he was not found among men, because God took him away to be home with him. When Methuselah was 187 years old, he became the father of Lamech. Methuselah lived 782 years after the birth of Lamech and had other sons and daughters. So Methuselah lived 969 years and he died. When Lamech was 182 years old, he became the father of a son. He named him Noah, saying, This one shall bring us rest and comfort from our work and from the dreadful toil of our hands because of the ground which the Lord cursed. Lamech lived 595 years after the birth of Noah and had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. That's interesting. 777 years. After Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, chapter 6 is called The Corruption of Mankind. This is the heading. And it says, Now it happened when men began to multiply in the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and desirable, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose and desired. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive and remain with man forever, because he is indeed flesh, sinful, corrupt, given over to sensual appetites. Nevertheless, his days shall yet be 120 years. There were Nephilim, men of stature, notorious men, on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God lived with the daughters of men, and they gave birth to their children. These were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown, great reputation and fame. The Lord saw that the wickedness or depravity of man was great on the earth, and that every imagination or intent of the thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. The Lord regretted that he had made mankind on the earth, and he was deeply grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, I will destroy or annihilate mankind, whom I have created from the surface of the earth, not only man, but the animals and the crawling things and the birds of the air, because it deeply grieves me to see mankind's sin, and I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor and grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the records of the generations. Noah, his family history. Noah was a righteous man, one who was just and had right standing with God, blameless in his evil generation. Noah lived habitually in fellowship with God. Now Noah became the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The population of the earth was corrupt, absolutely depraved, spiritually and morally putrid in God's sight, and the land was filled with violence, desecration, infringement, outrage, assault, and lust for power. God looked on the earth and saw how debased and degenerate it was, for all humanity had corrupted their way on the earth and lost their true direction. So that's in Genesis chapter 5, and I read a little bit of chapter 6 to give you some context, right? Because immediately following the lineage from Adam to Noah, it goes then into the Genesis chapter 6 Nephilim incursion on the earth, right? All right, so what they're implying here is that the generations of Noah were pure, okay? That all of the lineage from Adam to Noah, including Enoch, was pure. Enoch had favored with God, so he had a good relationship with God. That means that all of his generations, right, he had influence over them all the way down to Noah, and Noah was had enough favor with God that he was able to save him from the flood. All right. Now, let's go on to the New Testament. In Luke chapter 3, verse 37, it says, the son of the Methuselah, the son of Enoch, the son of Jared, the son of Mahalalel, the son of Kenan. So this is also explaining that same lineage, but going from Adam all the way down to Jesus. All right? So, and this is to explain how the lineage all the way to Jesus was pure. Okay? Now Hebrews chapter 11 verse 5 says, by faith Enoch was caught up and taken to heaven so that he would not have a glimpse of death. And he was not found because God had taken him. For even before he was taken, he received the testimony, still on record, that he had walked with God and pleased him. Now the final mention of Enoch is in Jude chapter 1 verse 14. It says it was about these people that Enoch in the seventh generation from Adam prophesied when he said, look, the Lord came with myriads of his holy ones. So Jude is talking about something that Enoch stated. I mean, he's quoting him specifically. But up to this point, in the Bible, we know that Enoch lived in the Old Testament, but there's no record in the Old Testament of anything that Enoch has said. All that we know is that Enoch had favor with God, and God took him. So I propose to you that there's a little more to the story of Enoch. We know that God favored him. We know that that information is given to us in the Holy Word of God. Okay? And we know that Enoch had something to say that our forefathers in the faith knew. They knew something that he had said so well that they could quote it. Okay? But we, the current generation of believers, have no record of anything that Enoch has said. So I propose to you that there's something missing from our Bible. If God favored Enoch, then why is it not in the Bible? But yet it's referenced in the Bible. So there's definitely something askew. Okay, this is my copy of the Book of Enoch. I ordered it from Defender Publishing, and it is very interesting. Okay, I want to read you a little bit of the Book of Enoch. It says, the words of the blessing of Enoch, wherewith he blessed the elect and righteous, who will be living in the day of tribulation, when all the wicked and godless are to be removed. And he took up his parable and said, Enoch, a righteous man, whose eyes were opened by God, saw the vision of the Holy One in the heavens, which the angels showed me. And from them I heard everything, and from them I understood as I saw, but not for this generation, but for a remote one, which is for to come. Considering the elect, I said, and took up my parable concerning them. The Holy Great One will come forth from his dwelling, and the eternal God will tread upon the earth, even on Mount Sinai, and appear from his camp, and appear in the strength of his might, from the heaven of heavens. And all shall be smitten which fear, and the watchers shall quake, and great fear and trembling shall seize them unto the ends of the earth. And the high mountains shall be shaken, and the high hills shall be made low, and shall melt like wax before the flame. And the earth shall be wholly rent in sunder, and all that is upon the earth shall perish, and there shall be a judgment upon all men. But with the righteous he will make peace. He will protect the elect, and mercy shall be upon them. And they shall all belong to God, and they shall be prospered, and they shall all be blessed, and he will help them all. The light shall appear unto them, and he will make peace with them. And behold, he cometh with 10,000s of his holy ones, to execute judgment upon all, and destroy all the ungodly, and to convict all flesh of all the works of their ungodliness which they have ungodly committed, and of all the hard things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. So here we have some communication that Enoch, this book, was made for a latter generation. Okay? Now, it was removed from the Bible, but yet lately it has been surfacing. We have remnants of it in the Bible. We know that it was accepted by our forefathers. So if Jude, the brother of Jesus, was quoting Enoch, I think that that gives it some validity, that it's a valid tool for us to study, okay? And it says in the book itself that it's specifically, written for the latter generation. And I do believe that we are steadily heading in that direction, if we're not already there, in that latter generation. To validate the idea that we are in that last generation, I want to propose to you something that Jesus said. All right, Matthew chapter 24, verse 3 is where we'll start. While Jesus was seated on the Mount of Olives, and disciples came to him privately and said, "Tell us when the destruction of the temple will take place, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end, or consummation of the age?" Jesus answered, "Be careful that no one misleads you or deceiving you and leading you into error. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and they will mislead many. You will continually hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened, for those things must take place, but that is not yet the end. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famine and earthquakes in various places. But all these things are merely the beginning of birth pangs, of the intolerable anguish and the time of unprecedented trouble." That's what the Amplified Version says. So, then they will hand you over to endure tribulation and will put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. At that time, many will be offended and repelled by their association with me, and will fall away from the one whom they should trust, and will betray one another, handing over believers to their persecutors, and will hate one another. Many false prophets will appear and mislead many. Because lawlessness is increased, the love of most people will grow cold. But the one who endures and bears up under suffering to the end will be saved. This good news of the kingdom, or the gospel, will be preached throughout the whole world as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end of the age will come. Perilous times. So when you see the abomination of desolation, the appalling sacrilege that astonishes and makes desolate, spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains for refuge. Whoever is on the housetop must not go down to get the things that are in the house, because there will not be enough time. Whoever is in the field must not turn back to get his coat. And woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. Pray that your flight from persecution and suffering will not be in winter or on a Sabbath, when Jewish laws prohibit travel. For at that time there will be a great tribulation, pressure, distress, oppression, such as has not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever will again. And if those days of tribulation had not been cut short, no human life would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, God's chosen ones, those days will be shortened. Then if anyone says to you during the great tribulation, "Look, here is the Christ," or there he is, do not believe it, for false Christs and false prophets will appear, and they will provide great signs and wonders, so as to deceive, if possible, even the elect, God's chosen ones. Listen carefully, I have told you in advance. So if they say to you, "Look, he's in the wilderness," do not go out there. Or, "Look, he's in the inner rooms of a house," do not believe it. For just as the lightning comes from the east and flashes as far as the west, so will the coming in glory of the Son of Man. Everyone will see him clearly. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will flock. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not provide its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, and the power of the heavens will be shaken. And in that time, the sign of the Son of Man coming in his glory will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth, and especially Israel, will mourn, regretting their rebellion and rejection of the Messiah. And they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory and brilliance and splendor, and he will send his angels with a loud trumpet, and they will gather together his elect, God's chosen ones, from the four winds and from one end of the heavens to the other. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its young shoots become tender and it puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. So you too, when you see all these things taking place, know for certain that he is near, right at the door. I assure you, and most solemnly say to you, this generation, the people living when these things and events begin, will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth, as now known, will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But if that exact day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son in his humanity, but the Father alone. For the coming of the Son of Man, the Messiah, will be just like the days of Noah. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the very day when Noah entered the ark. And they did not know or understand until the flood came and swept them all away. So will the coming of the Son of Man be. Unexpected judgment. At that time, 2 men will be in the field. One will be taken for judgment, and one will be left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken for judgment, and one will be left. So be alert. Give strict attention. Be cautious and active in faith, for you do not know which day, whether near nor far, your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the head of the house had known what time of night the thief was coming, he would have been on the alert and would not have allowed his house to be broken into. Therefore, you who follow me must also be ready, because the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not expect him. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his master has put in charge of the household to give the others in the house their food and supplies and proper time? Blessed is that faithful servant when his master returns and finds him doing so. I assure you and most solemnly say to you that he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But if that servant is evil and says in his heart, my master is taking his time, he will not return for a long while, and begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards, the master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and in an hour of which he is not aware, and will cut him in two and put him with the hypocrites in that place. There will be weeping over sorrow and pain, and grinding of teeth over distress and anger. Now, according to Matthew chapter 24, in my opinion, it describes a time like our present, where the earth is pretty well being in that tribulation period. We have wars and rumors of wars. We have earthquakes in various places. We have all sorts of things happening that seem to place us in the end times. So I do believe that this is the generation of people who really need to start paying attention to the Book of Enoch and what it says. And I want to read to you a little bit further. Okay, now, in the Book of Enoch, chapter 6, the first Book of Enoch, chapter 6, it says, and it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. Sounds a lot like Genesis chapter 6. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Semjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, let us all swear an oath and all bind ourselves with mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then sware they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And then it goes on to say the names of their leaders. And they're a little difficult to pronounce, so I'm not even going to try. These are their chiefs of 10. So it lists the chief 10 among them. All right. Now these are angels. So you get this, right? Angels who saw that women on the earth were beautiful and decided that they wanted to make a pact to join together to make them, be their wives. So chapter 7 says, and all the others together with them, so it's the chief 10 of them, plus all the others together with them, took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one, and they began to go in unto them, and to defile themselves with them, and they taught them charms and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. Sounds a little bit like witchcraft, maybe. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. So do you understand what that means? All the things that, because when Adam and Eve had been kicked out of the garden was their supply, right? God had supplied for Adam and Eve in the garden freely the fruit of the trees. When the curse was put upon Adam and Eve, Adam had to then till the ground and work for his food. And so at this point, the people of the earth who had been working to till the land now had to feed these giants, these enormous beings. And it says that their food supplies couldn't keep them fed. There was no food for the giants and the people. So when the giants got hungry enough, they just started to eat the people. Does that make sense? And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. So not only did they defile humanity, but they defiled the animals as well. Now, in my mind, this describes how possibly we would have the Minotaur, or the various different creatures of the Greek mythology. I mean, these are the heroes of old men of renown. That's the first place my mind went when I read this, was the Greek and Roman mythology. So if we have creatures and beings that are, outside of God's plan, God's got to set this straight. And this is why the flood of Noah occurred, okay? And in fact, hell was created for these fallen angels, these beings. And it goes on how Enoch was aware of God's plan, and that it's described right here in this book. So the giants turned against them and devoured mankind, and they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. So this is why Noah's flood occurred. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And their arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways. Some Jazatat enchantments and root cuttings, Armoros, the resolving of enchantments, Barakajal taught astrology, Kokabel, the constellations, Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds, Arakael, the signs of the earth, Shamsael, the signs of the sun, Sarael, the course of the moon, and as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. Chapter 9 says, and then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth, and all lawlessness being wrought upon the earth. And they said one to another, the earth made without inhabitant cries, the voice of their crying up to the gates of heaven. And now to you, the holy ones of heaven, the souls of men, make their suit, saying, bring our cause before the Most High. And they said to the Lord of ages, Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, and God of the ages, and throne of thy glory standeth unto all the generations of the ages, and thy name holy and glorious and blessed unto all the ages. Thou hast made all things, and power over all things hast thou, and all things are naked and open in thy sight, and thou seest all things, and nothing can hide itself from thee. Thou seest that what some Zazel hath done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. Okay, I want to stop right there for a second. Thou seest what Azazel hath done, who hath taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which were preserved in heaven, which men were striving to learn. Okay, so doesn't that sound a lot like the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Okay, so then it goes on, and the angels are talking to God, saying, accusations towards these fallen angels, the ones who made the pact, and went down to Mount Hermon and started teaching these things to the women and beings on the earth, the humans. And they have gone to the daughters of men upon the earth, and have slept with the women, and have defiled themselves, and revealed to them all kinds of sins. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth has thereby been filled with blood and unrighteousness. And now behold, the souls of those who have died are crying and making their suit to the gates of heaven, and their lamentations have ascended and cannot cease, because of the lawless deeds which are wrought on the earth. And thou knowest all things before they come to pass, and thou seest these things, and thou dost suffer them. And thou dost not say to us what we are to do to them in regard to these. So chapter 10 says, Then said the Most High, the holy and great ones spake, and sent Uriel to the son of Lamech, and said to him, Go to Noah, and tell him in my name, hide thyself, and reveal to him the end that is approaching, that the whole earth will be destroyed, and a deluge is about to come upon the whole earth, and will destroy all that is on it. And now instruct him that he may escape, and his seed may be preserved for all the generations of the world. And again the Lord said to Raphael, Bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudael, and cast him therein, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face, that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into the fire, and heal the earth which the angels have corrupted, and proclaim the healing of the earth, that they may heal the plague, and that all the children of men may not perish through all the secret things that the watchers have disclosed and have taught their sons, And the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribed all sin. And to Gabriel said the Lord, proceed against the bastards and the reprobates, and against the children of fornication, and destroy the children of fornication and the children of the watchers from amongst men, and cause them to go forth. Send them one against the other, that they may destroy each other in battle. For length of days shall they not have. Okay, so, the main point of this video is to help you understand that the Book of Enoch is an important text for our time. I do believe that as Christians we need to be diligent in studying, the things that are important to God for us to know. We need to spread the word and tell as many people as we can that there's a bigger message here, that you can have a little more of the details and understand things a little better and not have to just trust in God and not fully understand things, because God has provided us information that will help us understand better and be able to build our faith in the process and be able to convert others to the kingdom of God in a way that's, never been done before. Because this has, not necessarily never been done before, but at this point in time, it is a necessity. Because people are so far from God, they need to have this information, and I just really feel burdened to share it with you. So if you like this video, please press the like button. If you want to share this information with others, share this video. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll do my best to make more of this sort of content. Comment on it, tell me what you think. Start a conversation. There's a lot of information out there that we should be sharing with each other. Let's get to it. All right, thanks for watching. Have a good day. God bless.